it's hard to do it that way legislatively. So we're looking at legal measures, getting states, that if more states do this, to have a coalition of attorneys general file a lawsuit against the IRS, challenging that policy, because when you're declaring something to be legal tender to be money, obviously it's really absurd to be then taxing it as something else, as a collectible. And that policy was really arbitrary, made in the late 70s, and it's probably the biggest reason for preventing gold and silver coins right now from being used as money, because of that 28% short-term capital gains tax. So that's important.
Did you have any conversation with our Attorney General to see if he was interested in participating in a lawsuit like that?
I had before the bill was introduced, not since then, and so I think that's a good idea to circle back and just prime him and to make sure he'd be supportive of this. There's an Attorney General candidate in Utah named Sean Reyes, who's very much behind this and came to the Utah Monetary Summit we put on and spoke. And if he wins next year, then he's running on this, in other words, so he would be a big ally too.
I think Alan Wilson would be interested in
Rich, I had to talk about the question. I still remember June 28th when we stood outside the governor's office and made the announcement, and Dr. Witherspoon was there. And at the last minute, we had Rand Paul signed on to this thing.
Yeah. And
it was kind of stressful. But remember that we didn't know if we were going to make it in press time or not. But some of the folks wondered how I got the information, and I got it through the American Principles Project for the radio broadcast the previous week. And that was, for us, a big deal, because it, as Talbot suggests, taking the capital gains off the gold transaction makes it real money.
Right. Money
that's honest money or sound money. And thanks to Kenny for coming back to the dinner when you did. And we have to forget the Amazon issue and all that stuff, Kenny. But everything
bring that up, didn't he?
By the way, I'm going to get Amazon. But no, everything's good. I mean, Kenny's one of the few people that came and saw the necessity for something like this, because it's a tough thing to do, to go against the political mainstream. And that's what a lot of these folks are having to do. So thank you for all your effort and everything you've done. Now, your attorney's here, and if you have anything legal to say him before us.
Well, let me just quickly, on the theme of the day, I'll follow up on what Rich has said about gold. I work on the kind of the social issues wing of American Principles Project, but there's a direct tie into gold. When the federal government has this, they think they have an unlimited pile of cash there, which is kind of like Alice in Wonderland #1. They sit there and they think, well, how am I going to spend that money, which they think is their money, and the way they do it is, one of the ways they do it is it gives them this arrogance that they're going to go and start experimenting with the states, more particularly experimenting with parents and children. So what we've had all this time since we got off the gold standard, since we got away from sound money, is federal government is increasingly encroaching on parental prerogatives, state prerogatives, local prerogatives. And it's most insidious when it comes to the raising and upbringing of our children. And I'll give you an example of this that we're dealing with right now. 2009 stimulus bill, the Obama administration got a $4.5 billion discretionary grant to the Department of Education. By discretionary, I mean no strings attached. They could do with it whatever they wanted. And this is what they did with it. They got from a trade association a plan to institute a national curriculum on the states. They turned to the states and they said, if you want to compete for this money, not if you want this money, if you want to compete for this money, sign on, commit your state to this national curriculum. So the states all signed up and committed themselves to the curriculum. Initially, 2 states said no. Sarah Palin and Rick Perry right off said, no, this is crazy. So they got the commitments, and then the administration said, okay, we're going to show you the curriculum. It was a nice. They got the commitment first, then they said, we're going to show you the curriculum. So then they published the curriculum, and then the grants program attended to it. The states had 2 months to basically get on board. And it's a national standards, but it's national content standards. The standards are not owned by the federal government, they're owned by a trade association, the National Governors Association, that's what it is, a trade association. And the states now have to align their curriculum to the standards and their testing to the standards. The latest education bill in the federal government, they're expanding the curriculum. They're adding more things onto it. Science is the next set of standards. The first one is math, and then what they call English language, but English language includes history, what they call informational text. So that's all geared into that. English language curriculum has been radically transformed from being mostly literature to what they call informational text. So that's a radical change that's coming down to America, coming down to the states. The states have obligated themselves to do this. It's going to cost them lots of money to get that done, and the federal government's not funding that. So that's massive money that you're going to have to spend to implement this federal curriculum. Fortunately, now since then, some states have backed away. Governor McDonald got elected in Virginia. He pulled out of the program right away. Here in South Carolina, Nick Zayas is dead set against it. He's working hard against it. And Nikki Haley has, I think, pretty much come out against it. And I'd say the big star is Mike Fair. Mike Fair has introduced legislation that says that no statewide curriculum can be implemented unless there's a vote in the legislature. And that, what Senator Fair has done now, if you go to Heritage, Cato Institute, Hoover Institute, go talk to people like Ed Meese, President Reagan's Attorney General, they all point to Senator Fair's legislation as the model for the states and the way they're going to have to deal with that. The model, the way to go. And what we want to do this coming year is get senators, representatives on board with Senator Fair in fighting this takeover. It's a very simple piece of legislation. It says the legislature, the people's elected representatives, have to consider this, have to vote on this. And it's significant. You go back and look at how this came down. Came down through the stimulus bill. Congress didn't vote on it. Discretionary grant. And then the Department of Education said, we want the states to sign on. And there again, the legislature didn't vote on it. So this is what's happened to our democracy. You know, this radical transformation.
If you have to boil this down to some of the patriot groups in a couple sentences, it sounds like, and tell me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you've got this legislation coming down from the federal government. The federal government has more control, but it's coming down through a private entity in a sense.
Yes, this is a step beyond bureaucratic takeover. So this is a private entity funded by some liberal interest groups.
Who chose that private entity?
It came about. It's Bill Gates and Governor Hunt in North Carolina. It's kind of their brainstorm. Bill Gates has poured into the project through the National Governors Association and Council of Chief State School Officers, which, by the way, Nikki Haley stopped funding them with state money. He's poured over $100 million into this effort to date, and spread the money all over. You know, formerly conservative organizations like the Fordham Institute are now on board with this. So that's where the funding has come from, and that's what controls the standards. They're talking about governing the standards.
On Mike Fair's legislation, you said that it would require a vote